Hey, what's happening, guys? It's Jamie. It is Tuesday, January 24th, and I did a short video where I was talking about, very shortly, like a 60-second video, what I'm going to cover in detail here over the next 10 to 15 minutes. And that topic is about being dependent on others. Why I think being dependent on others is a bad habit. It makes you, it keeps you from growing up, in my opinion. You got to, I'm going to give some examples of why this is important. Again, if I was talking to my sons or my daughters or a younger person, I'm going to give you some illustrations. When I was in my early 20s, I should say mid 20s, and I had my first son, Mason, who is now 21. At the time, I was living at home, and at home for me was my grandfather, his house. He had a 2-family and a partially finished basement. I lived there for free. I had no bills whatsoever as far as like rent, electricity, water, heat, nothing. Like, he didn't charge me nothing, parking. And I think he did that initially to help me get on my feet and, get going. But I took advantage of that for a very long time. And he's such a sweetheart of a guy that he never had a conversation with me about it. And he's gone now, he's passed on. And I love the guy, but I wish that he would have looked me in the eye and said, grow up, right? Because what he did do is, at one point he just said, hey, I'm selling the house, and you got a couple weeks to get out and find somewhere to go. So, I had less than a month to, figure out what I was doing. Now, I was not prepared at all. It was a good thing in the grand scheme of things, where it forced me to grow up and to not be reliant and dependent on someone to coddle me and this. I don't want to come across the wrong way here, but there is some accountability to being an independent person, whether you're a man or a woman, a young man or a young woman. And I know some young guys and gals that are on their own in their late teens and early 20s, and they're out there working and just try to be self-sufficient. So I have respect for that, but at the same token, I also see some of these guys and gals who are, are not really focused on the future. They're like, they're able to sustain themselves, but they're blowing their money and time on a lot of stuff that's not going to be productive. I heard a young guy on Bigger Pockets the other day that was talking about how he looked at a successful young man who looked at a 10-year plan where he said, I figured if I could sacrifice for a decade, I would be in a good position, like from 20 to 30, where I wouldn't have to work. And he believes in that FIRE movement, which is, I forget what it stands for, but it's something to do with being, free, right, of debt, and not being able to have financial independence, something like that, something to do with financial independence. So I think that's great when you have some discipline, but including myself, some of us weren't taught that. We have no idea how to manage money, how to track our net worth, to how to have a proper budget, how to use credit and debt. Like, none of that stuff. Like, nobody sat me down and explained that. So going back to Grandpa Eddie, who threw me out in a nice way, where he said, you got to go. It forced me to take some responsibility, and I had to go through a very difficult time where at first I was staying at my girlfriend's house with our baby, at the time, and we were living in a basement again, but now we had 2 other young people down there living with us in 2 rooms that were set up. So I had 2 people beside us and we were in the middle, like almost kind of like a living room. We had people above us. We had, her mom and dad, and her mom and stepfather, and then her brother lived upstairs. In fact, I don't know if we had two brothers. It was a long time ago, but at least one of her brothers was upstairs, and one of her brothers was downstairs, and then her step sister. So we were all living there, and it was super uncomfortable. And I had a crying baby, and I couldn't do what I wanted to. I couldn't come and go as I pleased because I had to be respectful of where I was staying. And eventually I had to go out and get an apartment for $400 a month in a rough neighborhood in New Bedford. I had to do that for a while, save up some money, and learn how to, take care of my family as a guy in his early 20s or mid 20s at the time, 25, 26 or so, I think I was, right? Maybe a little ago, 26, 27. And I had to catch up and do what I needed to do. And I was still immature and all those things. So maybe you can relate to that. Maybe you can look back on that and say, yeah, I remember when I was there. Or maybe you're there now. But I have these people today that are coming up to me and asking me for not a handout, but looking for money. I've had people ask me for $100, $1,000, $30,000, 25,000, like different reasons, right? Some are, I'm like, what do you need the money for? I can't pay my rent, okay? And this is a man who has a family and who's been working for, 15, 20 years in the same business with children, young children and older children, and I think, man, how did this happen? I know the person doesn't have a drug habit or an alcohol problem or gambling problem, but they are struggling and they're asking me for help. I had somebody else ask me who was well above me, right, in income of what they're able to earn by probably a couple $100,000 annually, and they asked me for 25 grand. So, I mean, why am I sharing? I'm sharing this because it doesn't matter what the reason is. And what I said in this short video is we all struggle. Like, we go through a different stages of our lives where situations happen, some are out of our control, where we just need help. And sometimes you'll do a charity to help somebody, on whether it's somebody on the side of the road that you think is not just trying to hustle you, as that cardboard sign, and they just legitimately are struggling, whether they're homeless or somebody else who loses their job, or somebody gets sick. I mean, countless reasons of why people need help. But if you get in over your head, right, and this is myself included, if you take on some debts that are exceeding your income, you're gonna have to pay that bill, man. Like if you get a car payment, and the car payment is a lot of money, and I know somebody that has a very high car payment, right? And I won't say their name. Now this person can afford the car payment, but when some other things happen, and then they have to, pay some additional expenses, they get kind of caught up in, like, oh, I got this high car payment, and can you help me with this thing? No, no, I can't, because you decided to take on this super high car payment because you can afford it, and it doesn't make sense to me. That's your choice, and now you're not going to burden me because I'm doing all the right things, right? And it took me a long time to figure it out, where you expect me just to accommodate your choices, okay, whether they're good or bad choices. If you can't pay your rent or your mortgage, then you got to make an adjustment. You got to take a look at yourself and say, what am I spending, right? Whether it's a car payment, car insurance, a subscription to something you don't really need, maybe you're living somewhere that's outside of your means. Maybe you're spending money on things that you're not meant to have right now. I'm not telling you that you don't deserve to reward yourself, or that you should not have nothing, nice in your life. That's not what I'm saying. It's a choice. But when I looked at 2023, and I said to some of my friends and family and people I know, hey, it sounds like, guys, that 2023 may be difficult. It may be more of a challenge than it was last year, right? It may be some more pain coming up between the recession becoming maybe a hard recession. People get job layoffs, higher inflation, higher rates, and all these different combination of things that will affect the bottom line, that will affect your bottom line and my bottom line. So what do? You know what I did? I bought out my lease. I mean, I usually lease a car every 2 or 3 years, and I usually get a very small payment, right, for a brand new car, because I'm in the auto business. I've been in the auto industry for decades, and I get something decent, but I'm not spending $1,000, $2,000 a month on a car payment. And at the end of this lease, I had the option to buy the car or turn it in, and you know, I bought the car this time. I bought it because if I'm going to spend the money, I can either pay cash, you know, and allocate a certain amount of money to that amount that's needed to own the car. And now I've deployed the cash, and right, and they're driving in this case, in this example, an depreciating asset. But $15,000 for a car that's running fine, it's got decent low mileage, and is excellent on gas, right? And has no and I have a warranty, right, for the next 3 years should something happen, something big. It's not a lot of money, whether I finance it, which would be around $300 a month, or whether I just pay 15 grand, right? That makes sense for me. Can I afford a $100,000 car if I want to? Absolutely, I can. All right, and I don't mean that as an arrogant jerk. I'm saying that I can, right? And I may eventually get a higher price car, but I don't need it. And going into 2023, where all these the sentiment is, hey, we might be in some trouble. We don't know if it's going to last 3 months, 6 months, a year and a half. You know, just be careful. Be able to pay your bills, your mortgage, feed your family, keep the lights on, right? Just the basic essential things that you need to do, where maybe you don't have to go into your savings and other assets and liquidate those, or you know, pull money out just when you say, hey, if I just kind of stay within a certain parameter, I'm not going to overextend myself, leverage myself. Okay, and I see it. I see it from friends, people that are close to me, people I work with that are stressed out. I mean, they are so stressed out because business has changed. They're in a difficult situation where they're like not making the same money. I know guys that have taken a 30-40% pay cut annually. So all this stuff makes a difference. And this is not something new when you get accustomed to living a certain way, and then all of a sudden there's a change. What now? What do I do now? Well, coming to me or someone like me, your friend, a family member, right, and saying, hey, can you help me? Can you bail me out? Why? Well, because here's the reason. I over-leverage myself. I'm a grown person, and you know, I almost said something bad, but I'm a grown person, and I bit off more than I can chew, knowingly, right? I'm not prepared. I just want you to think about this. Like say this, you know, just hear yourself. You know, say this. Be honest. Be truthful with yourself. You know, that the reason why you're in this situation is your own fault. It's your fault. You gotta look at some things and take responsibility. There's some things that aren't your fault. There's some things that you couldn't change. There's nothing you could do about it. But there are things where you're like, you know what, I knew I shouldn't have bought that property. That was, you know, I'm paying too much. The rate's too high. I could barely afford to pay it. In fact, I'm in over my head, and it needs work. And now something bad's happened. And what now, right? Help me, right? Well, no, you shouldn't have gotten in that situation in the first place. You should have thought it through. Whatever the situation, whatever the circumstance might be, there's going to be times when you need to stop, right? Think about it. Have a conversation. If you're not sure, have a conversation with someone that you think knows better, right? Or has more experience. I do it all the time. I talk to people that I think are far more qualified than me with a specific thing, whether I can actually have a conversation with them, right, in person or on the phone or FaceTime or whatever, or I'll listen to a video from someone who's talking about a topic where I think they're the expert, or at least better at it, than I am. So I'm not really I'm not angry at it. I'm not mad at any of these people, right? But what I'm saying is the best advice I can offer, take it for what it's worth. My input is coming to, not me, but going to someone and expecting them to bail you out and to save you is not a good habit to get into. And to me, it makes you, not self-sufficient and reliant, but the opposite. You get weak and dependent and complaining and finding all the reasons why you're not able to do it. You do the blame game. Oh, it's his fault or her fault or this one's fault, or it doesn't matter why. If you're not prepared or better prepared, then and you knew better, right? You only have yourself to blame. Again, I'm not talking about the situations where it's out of your control, right? The house catches on fire and you need a place to stay. Somebody gets sick, or God forbid a tragedy, you lose somebody who is a main provider for your family, and there's a tragedy that happens and you just need help, right? Whether it's with kids or some that's different. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about being a grown-up and biting off more than you can chew and spending money in foolish ways, or having a warning about things and then still being disregarding this, right? Or being arrogant and saying, I'll be fine, I'll just do what I want to do. And this is what I'm going to leave off with. I had a conversation today with a guy older than me, and we're talking about our kids, and we're saying like how sometimes you talk to someone who you love and care about, and all you want to do is help them, right? There's nothing more important to you than saying like or not nothing more important. There would be no greater joy to me, but than to share this thing with this information with someone that I care about, right? Versus even a stranger, and say, hey, look, sir, ma'am, folks, son, daughter, right, cousin, uncle, whatever it is. If you do this thing, I've done it, and it's worked over and over again. I've been very successful with this, and I've done this thing, and I've failed over and over again. So please, just consider this, right? Whatever that might be. Consider that if you do this thing, it's going to help or hurt you, and here's why. And then you go for them, But if you ignore it, and then something bad happens, and you go, hey, can you help me? Can you give me money? Because I'm dependent on you. Not a good thing. It's not a good thing. It's going to really hold you back. And I have friends of mine that are my age or older that are still doing that. They're still dependent on other people and they don't need to be. They shouldn't be to help them, right? When they should be able to stand on their own 2 feet. So anyway, that is my input. Whether I hope it doesn't come across the wrong way, but I think for some of you need to hear this. Some of you need to kind of just go, all right, that's me. I'm guilty of that. I need to take stock in myself and realize I can do better. That's all, man. You just want to do better. You can do better. We can all do better. All right, this was a long one, 20 minutes almost, so or under 20 minutes. I'll keep it on that. I'm just going to post it the way it is, and I know I promised some stock stuff, but I don't have time on that. I think this was more important to talk about than just that, because you can get money, you can get a lot of money, you could have hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, and if you don't know what to do with it, you can blow it. That's how a lot of people that inherit money, win money, right? They come into a windfall, and then they end up broke because they have no idea. Or people that have overnight success and they don't know what to do, right? They're just like, oh wow, I can just go buy all these things. So I think you got to take a moment to think about that. I promise tomorrow I'll talk about stocks, all right, and investment stuff. Okay, but this is investment stuff. This is investing in yourself. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one.